Hi, it's Kalia here, real estate investor coach in Washington, D.C. And today I want to take some time to talk about rehabbing costs. Rehabbing costs 101. That's what we're talking about today. I'm here at the gym. Actually, I just finished doing a mini workout, and I wanted to take some time to go live to answer your questions. So, let's go ahead and get started. With rehabbing, you have about 3 different types of rehabs, is what I classify them as. The first one is more of your rehab for rentals. The second one is what some people call your lipstick rehab. I have a friend that calls it that, a lipstick rehab. And then you have your full gut job rehab, right? So all of these rehabs have different renovations that are included in it and also different costs. So let's first just talk about the rental rehab. With the rental rehab, you're really not going to do much to it. What you're going to do is basically just improve the property so that it's in a good condition in order for your tenant to move in. So with that one, you don't always have to go with top notch. Again, it depends on your rental market. So if you're going for like high end rental, low end rental, you just want to get an idea of what other people are doing in your market for the amount of rents that they're charging. So like, let's say for instance, you're doing, someone mentioned like Section 8. Let's say you're going with Section 8. So that's more of a low end renovation, because you're not going to go in and put in all this high-end stuff, because over time you'll be making improvements, especially with rentals just in general. So one thing I suggest, like what I do in my rentals, is I put in like those IKEA floors, pergo floors. I put in that type of flooring so that I don't have carpet there and I have to keep going in to change things. So that's pretty much for your rentals. You definitely want to go look at other rentals and what people are doing in the market for what they're charging. So with that, it could be pretty much your cosmetic repairs, like doing the pergo floors or putting in carpet. You may have to do painting, putting in like, let's say toilets or upgrading bathrooms, but it really just depends. It'll be very like minimal when you're dealing with your rentals, unless you're going for high-end rentals where you have to put in like granite countertops and the market really demands all these high-end improvements to be able to rent for top market or top dollar. So that's just your rentals. Then for your rehabbing, you have 2 different ones. So one of them is what I told you my friend calls a lipstick rehab. With these lipstick rehabs, everything that you're replacing is what meets the eye. So everything that the eye can see is what people are primarily changing. So with those, like when you first walk in, somebody's doing a landscaping, because when you first walk up to a house, you'll probably see landscaping. The exterior doors are probably getting changed. The windows may be getting changed. You come in, of course, the flooring throughout is probably getting changed, unless it's like hardwood floors, maybe it could be refinished, but even still, it's getting an upgrade. You go in the kitchens are getting upgraded. Of course, the place is getting completely painted. The bathrooms are going to get upgraded. Now, this is your lipstick rehab, in which we call like a rehab, but it's minimal. You're only making enough improvement as to what meets the eye. And so, of course, with these rehabs, you do have to like look at your market and have an idea. Of course, when you're doing your after repair values, what I always suggest people do when you don't really know what things are going for, you're just getting started, you definitely need to go to open houses and see what other people are doing in your market. And I can tell you just from experience, like I have, not to get off topic, but for instance, even for myself, one time, my partner and I, we had gotten a property. It was in upper Northwest DC. And we thought that the property needed a complete rehab. I'm sorry, my helper here. We thought the property needed a complete rehab. We were ready to redo everything. We thought it needed new bathrooms, new kitchen, especially like the bathrooms. We thought everything needed to be renovated. But after we went to go see some open houses of a house that was actually almost across the street, we saw that people were not doing that. So even though the bathroom had like those old colored tiles and stuff like that, we didn't have to change all that. All we had to really do was like refinish the bathtub, put in new sinks, and then I think we regrouted. But we probably saved ourselves like thousands of dollars just in the bathrooms. We did have to put in a new kitchen. We didn't change the layout. But the thing about it was is that we thought it needed a full gut job because that's what people were doing in downtown DC. But at the time of the market when we got in, people were not, like, let's say in the locations we were so desirable that people were not doing like a full renovation in the bathroom. So that's why you definitely have to go see what people are doing nearby your property so that you can compare apples to apples instead of just guessing about what people are doing or thinking about what people are doing when you're looking at these properties. You definitely have to compare. But if you're doing a lipstick rehab, what I always suggest, I kind of just use ballpark figures. Like I may say, okay, well, it costs, X amount of dollars to do a full kitchen. Let's say it's like $5,000 to do a full kitchen. Or, this is how much it costs, $3,000 to do a bathroom. I'm just throwing out ballpark numbers, but I'll just use ballpark figures. And then like for the flooring, I'll just know, okay, well, the whole square foot of the house is XYZ. And I know all the floors have to be upgraded. So I may say, okay, well, this is how much it is dollar per square foot. Or like windows, let's say windows between 200 and 300. Okay, well, this is how many windows the house has. And I kind of just added up that way. Now this is your lipstick rehab, because I'm just using ballpark figures, because again, keep in mind, especially if you're wholesaling, you're not going to be the one that's doing the rehab. And the reason why it's going to be ballpark, like even when you talk to your investors, they already know that what you're telling them is a estimate, and they already know that they're going to have to bring their contractor in there, because the contractor pricing for your investors is not going to be the same. So one person may tell you, okay, well, let's say they have about 10 rehabs going on. So they may get something for a steal, or their construction costs for a steal, where somebody else is paying top dollar. Maybe this is their first rehab and they got a high price contractor. So the pricing can vary greatly on how much contractors charge to even do work. So again, that's why I suggest you go to your local Home Depot. At least have a basic idea of how much it costs for windows, how much it costs for a water heater with the install, because of course you got the material and you got the labor. So you can just kind of ballpark it, okay, well, or even if you go on Craigslist, for example. I mean, Craigslist is not always the best, but at least you can say, okay, well, for somebody to put in a water heater, let's say the water heater is $700. Or let's say somebody's doing windows, you're looking at $200 to $300. Or this is how much per square foot somebody's going to charge if I go with like either carpet or tile or the pergo floors. But it's good to go to Home Depot to have an idea of like how much would it cost to get like just a basic kitchen at Home Depot. Like let's say you're doing for your 10-foot kitchen, okay, but how much is that? So again, for your lipstick rehabs or your minimal rehabs, you're just doing everything that meets the eye. Unless there's something that's like some damage or something like that. Let's say you go in, you see a pipe burst. Okay, well, that's going to be outside of that, because that's something, that has to be repaired, but it's behind the walls. So the next one is actually your, what we call like a full gut job. A full gut job basically means that you're taking the house down to the bones. So everything has to come out of there. So let's say the plumbing could be coming out. Let's say it's galvanized plumbing in there. The plumbing's coming out. The electric may need to be upgraded. The electric, let's say, is very old. So basically, like the only thing that's really intact is just the wood, like, or let's say if you're dealing with brick homes in DC, for example, you're taking it down to the actual brick. So everything else is coming out of the house. So if you go in that house, you won't really see anything in there. The roof needs replaced, the electric needs replaced. And so sometimes in your lower income neighbor or your lower price neighborhoods, that one can be a little bit difficult, because when you look at a house, for the most part, there's going to be a minimum amount that it costs to basically gut out a house. So that's why sometimes it pays, like if you're doing like full gut jobs, to be in places where, the pricing is a little bit higher, because, like let's say, for instance, I used to look at this one neighborhood in Baltimore all the time. And at this time, like the houses were like maybe, I don't know, $5,000, $10,000. But then, when I compared it to DC, for example, and I already knew, okay, well, let's say this whole house is going to cost at least $50,000 to put back together. Well, then it wasn't really much profit in it. Whereas if you looked at maybe that same house in DC, maybe, or even like the DMV, not even necessarily just DC, but maybe the house we're going for like $200,000 for that same $50,000 or $60,000 that you have to put into the house. So that's why definitely you want to make sure you're in a market where you can make a spread. Because if you're in certain neighborhoods where the house is fixed up or only going for, let's say, $100,000, and it's that same $50,000 versus a house selling for $200,000, and you got to put in that same $50,000, well, you'd rather be in the neighborhood with the $200,000s, because that's how you're going to make your money. Otherwise, you may keep running into the same problem where you're looking at a low spread, or you can't make a spread because the neighborhoods you're dealing in are just too cheap. So you need to make sure you're looking in the right neighborhoods. So for the gut jobs, I got one friend for DC. We pretty much say, okay, well, for DC, for like a full gut job, with high end. Now, high end, we would be looking at about $85 a square foot. So some people do also say, okay, well, if it's a low lipstick, is this per square foot? If it's high end, it's going to be this per square foot. But again, the true way of really knowing what the costs for repairs are to actually have an itemized list, okay, windows, doors, floors, and then actually be able to, let's say you go to Home Depot, you put in your material. So like somebody who's really estimating costs, that's the way that they would go about it. Whereas like, as a wholesaler, you're not really getting in that detail because you're not actually the one doing the work. And also too, you have to know like what somebody's end goal would be. So like if you're dealing with certain investors, again, I mentioned like some people would do a full gut job. Some people may come in that same house and just say, oh no, we don't need to do that. Just like I told you about my experience with the house I was working on. I realized that I was probably going to put in maybe even like $20,000 more than what I had to, thinking that I had to do a lot more renovation than what I ended up really having to do. So, and again, the cost for labor and materials may vary slightly around the country. I'm in DC. DC is more of a high-end, a high-end market. Most people are going high-end. And so that 85 a square foot is high. And that's why I suggest that you kind of go to Home Depot and even just write a list of basic repairs that could be done. Like, let's say the water heater needs to be done. The AC needs to be replaced. How much is the AC unit? How much are windows? And you just need to know like the price of one and the install. And of course it's going to vary, but at least you have a ballpark figure to work with. How much is flooring per square foot? How much is a 10-inch, basic kitchen? How much is that just with the install? So you can go like look at the model and you can just ask them. Sometimes they even have the price by there with the display and just see how much it's going to be. Does anybody have any questions?